Same $300,000 portfolio. Same stocks, same bonds, same mix. One of these two retirees pays the CRA and the IRS over $1,000 more every single year, and it comes down to one decision nobody ever told them about. Meet Linda and Paul. They own the exact same investments in the exact same amounts, earning the exact same return. The only difference is which account each piece sits in. That difference has a name: asset location. It just means deciding which account holds which investment: your TFSA, your RRSP, or a regular taxable account. Not what you own, where you keep it. And this is the part that catches almost everyone. This is not your asset allocation, your mix of stocks and bonds. You can get the mix perfectly right and still quietly hand the government money you never had to give up, purely because the wrong thing is sitting in the wrong drawer. So who is making this call? Every Canadian with money spread across more than one account, usually by accident. On a $300,000 portfolio with identical holdings, one retiree pays over $1,000 more in tax a year than the other. On a bigger portfolio, several times that. By the time we wrap up here, you will know exactly which asset belongs in which account, and the one place a bond quietly wastes your single best tax shelter. Get this one wrong, and it quietly costs you for years. So let's get the order right. First, the simple idea that each account has a job, what each one is actually best at holding. Then the part that feels backwards: why your bonds do not belong in your TFSA. Then the part most people miss: the U.S. dividends that leak 15% in one account and 0 in another. And last, where your Canadian dividends go. And the catch that can bite if you are near GIS or OAS, the piece that decides it. Start with the foundation everything else sits on. Each of your accounts has a job. They are not interchangeable buckets. Think of 3 drawers: your RRSP, your TFSA, and a regular taxable account. The reason it matters which drawer holds what is that the government taxes different kinds of investment income in completely different ways. There are 3 kinds. Interest, the money a bond or a GIC pays you, gets taxed at your full rate, the same as a paycheck. Dividends, the cash a company hands its shareholders, get a gentler treatment. And capital gains, the profit when something you own goes up and you sell it, only count for half. Same dollar earned, 3 very different tax bills. So each drawer is best at sheltering a different one of those. Your TFSA shelters everything inside it from tax forever. So it is best used on whatever would otherwise be taxed the most and grow the most. Your RRSP shelters the money while it grows and taxes it on the way out, which makes it the right home for steady, fully taxed interest. And your taxable account is the only place a special break on Canadian dividends actually works. Same portfolio, different drawers, different jobs. Remember, none of this changes what you own or your stock-to-bond mix. It only changes which account each piece sits in. That is each account's job on paper. Now the part that feels backwards. Why the account everyone guards the most is the one a bond quietly wastes. The second move is the one almost everyone gets backwards. It is the whole reason this video exists. Your TFSA is the most valuable tax shelter you will ever own. Everything inside it grows and comes out completely tax-free, no limit, forever. So the obvious question is, what should you protect with something that precious? And the honest answer is, the asset that would otherwise be taxed the hardest and grow the biggest. Now look at what a lot of careful, responsible people actually do. They put their bonds and their GICs, the safe stuff, inside the TFSA. It feels prudent. It is the exact opposite of prudent. Here is why. Say you hold $120,000 in bonds paying a 4% yield, just as a round number at today's rates. Interest is the most heavily taxed income there is, but it is also your lowest growth, safest money. When you wrap your TFSA around it, you are spending your most precious, once-in-a-lifetime shelter to protect a small, slow-growing amount. Meanwhile, your real growth, the part that could have compounded tax-free for decades, sits in a taxable account getting taxed. Flip it. Bonds belong in your RRSP, where fully taxed interest is sheltered as it grows. Your highest growth equities belong in the TFSA, where the biggest gain escapes tax entirely. And one important thing, bonds are not the problem. Bonds in the wrong account are. That is the bond mistake, and it is fixable in one move. But interest is not the only thing quietly leaking in the wrong account. There is a 15% loss hiding in U.S. dividends, and one account where you can never, ever get it back. Now, the part most people miss, and the most misexplained point in this subject, there is a second leak, and getting it wrong is where the real money goes. When you own a U.S. stock, you own directly, or a U.S.-listed fund bought in U.S. dollars. The United States takes a slice of every dividend before it ever reaches you. That slice is called withholding tax, and for a Canadian, it is 15%. Now watch what happens to that 15% in 3 accounts, because this is where almost every explainer blurs it together. In your RRSP, it is 0. A treaty between Canada and the U.S. lets a retirement account collect U.S. dividends with nothing held back. It arrives whole. But that 0 comes with a catch almost no one mentions. It only works if the fund itself is U.S. listed. If you hold a Canadian-listed fund that owns U.S. stocks, the 15% gets taken inside the fund before it ever reaches your account, and not even the RRSP can claw it back. In a regular taxable account, the 15% is still taken, but you can claim most of it back on your tax return, a credit for the tax the U.S. already took. And then there is the TFSA. There, that 15% is taken, and you never get it back. Not eventually, gone. Why? Because you reclaim that tax by crediting it against Canadian tax you owe. A TFSA produces no Canadian tax, so there is nothing to credit it against, and the 15% is lost. On a $600 U.S. dividend, that is around $90 handed over for nothing, and it scales up fast on a bigger holding. Competitors lump the TFSA in with the taxable account. They are not the same. That is the U.S. dividend split. 0 in the RRSP, 15 but recoverable in a taxable account, 15 and gone forever in the TFSA. If this just shifted the way you see your TFSA, a quick tap on like is what puts it in front of the next retiree sorting their accounts. And the last drawer. This one holds Canadian dividends, and it comes with a number that sounds too good to be true, plus a catch. A Canadian eligible dividend gets a special tax break, the dividend tax credit. It only applies to Canadian dividends, never foreign ones, which is the second reason U.S. dividends belong in the RRSP. And only in the lower brackets, where your other income is modest, that break gets generous enough that the effective rate can actually drop below 0. In higher brackets, it does not. One note, these are Ontario numbers. The shape is the same everywhere. The exact rates shift by province. Now the catch, because it is not free money. To give you the break, the government first inflates the dividend on paper. That inflated number lands on the income line that decides your GIS and your OAS. So a lower income retiree near those thresholds can quietly raise their clawback and lose benefits, even while the tax on the dividend itself is negative. If you are near GIS or OAS, that is a conversation for a fee-only advisor, not a YouTube video. One honest caveat. All of this matters most once your registered room is full. If you still have unused room, the first job is just getting money into the shelter. Now the mirror. Linda spent her precious tax-free shelter on interest that barely grew, while her U.S. dividends leaked 15% she could never claim back. Paul held the same investments and just put each one in the right drawer. Same portfolio, different drawers, over $1,000 a year. The only question left is where you actually hold each piece. So here's the practical step. Pull up your accounts. Find where your bonds, your U.S. dividends, and your growth sit now. Then, with new money and your next rebalance, steer each one toward the drawer it belongs in. One warning. You cannot just shuffle U.S. stocks into an RRSP for free. Moving them can trigger a taxable gain and uses up contribution room. This is about where new money and rebalancing go, not a sell-off. And one more trap. If a holding is sitting at a loss, sell it to cash first. Move a loser in kind, and the CRA cancels that loss for good. Doing that sort across 3 account types by hand is where people stall. The tool I would point you to is WealthSimple, because inside one app, you can hold the right asset in the right account and see all 3 wrappers in one place. Growth in the TFSA, bonds and U.S. dividends in the RRSP, Canadian dividends in the taxable, instead of juggling 3 logins. One thing to put on the table up front. If you join through my link, you get $25 after funding with $100. I should also say plainly that $25 comes to me. Current terms are in the description in case they change. It is not the only option. Any reputable Canadian brokerage gives you the same 3 wrappers, and asset location works the same wherever the accounts live. Pick whichever you will actually use. And to be clear, WealthSimple just helps you hold the right asset in the right account. It is not personal tax advice, and it is no substitute for a pro on the GIS, OAS, and U.S. citizen edges. So that is the whole map. Growth in the TFSA, interest and U.S. dividends in the RRSP, Canadian dividends in the taxable account. Same investments you already own, just sitting in the right drawers, quietly keeping over $1,000 a year that used to leak away. You do not have to be a tax expert to fix this. You just have to know which drawer each piece belongs in and then move new money and rebalances toward it. One decision, made once, that keeps paying you back for as long as you stay invested. That is the rare kind of money move with no downside and no catch. An asset location slip like this is the kind of thing one decision fixes for good, the moment you can see it. Subscribe, and the next costly drawer mistake reaches you before your money does. And the part that catches people, asset location is only one of the ways a TFSA gets quietly set up wrong. There are a few more, and one of them is costing people even more than this one. That is the next video. Your TFSA setup is wrong. Watch that one next. I'm walking the rules here, not your file. The outcome depends on your specific facts, not the general case. Confirm yours with a professional first. Thanks for watching.